A premise is ideally one statement, and it is a testament, it is a moral, or a it's a declaration of something. It's a statement that wants to prove something. It wants to enforce a certain value, moral, ethic, and supposedly the story is then used to carry out the purpose of the premise. Okay. The reason that the concept of premise is around is because stories that last and stories that haunt people and stories that really compel people and those stories that we remember and we love and we hold on to, those stories all have one thing, and that is a premise. And well, I don't know. Does Alice in Wonderland have a premise? I'll have to think that over. Anyway, um, so what is a premise? The reason the reason a premise makes a story powerful is because a premise comes out of a strong feeling. The author has a strong feeling about something. Shakespeare had a strong feeling in Romeo and Juliet that love conquers all, even death. And that is the premise. And that underlying hidden premise working throughout that entire story is the result of this moral or a value, but Shakespeare was not consciously wanting to dictate this moral to us that love conquers all, even death. He was not consciously trying to convince us of this. He was already convinced of it, and he had such a strong feeling of this that it generated the story. So he's not someone who's trying to preach to us or compel us to feel the same way. He's reacting on a strong feeling. And that's the true origin of a premise, is that the author has a strong feeling, that the institution of war is creates I don't know, surplus goods. I don't know. That's not I'm not going to be writing that story. I can tell you that much. And it's the author is already convinced of the premise, and so convinced of it that he wants to create a story out of this strong feeling he has, and that story inevitably is going to be convincing to us, the readers and the viewers, but it isn't the purpose of a premise to it. It is and it isn't. A premise does want to win over the reader, but at the same time doesn't really care if the reader is won over or much, because the author really believes that much in the premise. But the author is not writing to serve the premise.
Thank you for watching this tutorial. It's made so that more people can be told about an illustrated film. Episodes of the film are posted at soulomation.com. New episodes are posted as they are finished. All episodes will be free, available to watch at soulomation.com when the project is completed. If you like these tutorials, you can help out by telling a friend about them and by taking a few minutes to watch the film.
My first point about a premise: if you are a writer And when you start working on a story, forget about the premise because you have the timing wrong. Just start writing, and in second and third draft, that's when you can decide on your premise and use that to focus the story and hone it and cut away the chaff and and give it direction and make it work really well that way. But starting out with a premise is just plain backwards and does not work in the act of writing. Looking at the premise first, what may work great for the reader and for the critic, but not for the writer. Point number 2. A great story is not the result of a great premise. A great story and a great premise are the result of the author caring about something, feeling passionate about something, enough so to write a story. And caring about something generates a premise. If Shakespeare cared about love and that love is so strong to the human condition that it becomes more important than survival itself, that attitude that Shakespeare had is what generated the great story and the great premise. Shakespeare never formulated it in terms of, okay, here's my premise and I'll write a story based on it. That, he may have later in another draft of Romeo and Juliet, he may have used that premise to focus the story, but that is later on in the writing process. So I cannot stress this enough. If you are starting a story, forget about the premise, forget about the premise, forget about the premise. Just write and write and write and write and write. And don't even think about a premise until you are at least done with first draft. The important thing is just to start writing. Okay, so that pretty much covers it for today. I hope your writing goes very well, and I hope you have a good day.